Okay, so we're going to be talking about writing linear inequalities. And we know an inequality is just a mathematical comparison. We're comparing two expressions, okay? Like in the last video, we had x is greater than or equal to 2, and we're comparing all the numbers to 2 that make the statement true, okay? So we use the symbols less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. But what we're going to find is we're going to be looking at an actual sentence, and we want to translate that into a mathematical phrase, okay? So we're going to be translating a text into a mathematical phrase. Now, the symbols, oftentimes when we're reading the text, in order to translate it into one of our symbols, whether that be less than or greater than, oftentimes there are keywords or key phrases that can help us know which one of these do I need to use so that I can write my comparison, okay? For instance, when we say is less than, another way we might phrase that is fewer than, okay? You might say, well, let's say Tim and Susie, they both have apples. Well, Tim could have fewer apples than Susie. That just means he has less than Susie, okay? So that's where that less than comes in, okay? He doesn't have the same amount, he has fewer than. Or if we switch it around and said, well, then Susie has more than Tim, well, that would be greater than. Another way we might say greater than is more than. Susie has more apples than Tim. Okay? Now, both of those are non-inclusive. In other words, they don't have equality. So in our example with Susie and Tim having apples there, they don't have the same number of apples. Tim had fewer than, Susie had more than. Okay? It was definitive. However, there are cases where we can include things. That's the less than or equal to and the greater than or equal to. So other ways we might read less than or equal to is at most or is no more than. For instance, maybe we're talking about the length of a sheet of paper. We could say the length of a sheet of paper is at most 8 inches. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means it could be 8 inches or less, right? Or we could say that the length of a sheet of paper is no more than 8 inches. Well, again, that means it could be 8 inches. That's inclusive, but it could also be less than, okay? That's where that equals part comes in. It could include the value, but it could also be less. Well, we could also flip that around and talk about greater than or equal to. We could say is at least or is no less than. Well, let's go back to the sheet of paper. I could say the sheet of paper is at least 8 inches. Well, if it's at least 8, that means it could be 8 or more, right? It could be 8, but it could also be more. We could also say is no less than 8 inches. Same thing. It could be 8 inches or more. So these give us hints or key phrases, help us know which symbol we're going to use when we're trying to translate the text. So when we're writing these inequalities, it says write each sentence as an inequality, okay? So we read the sentence and we're going to look for keywords here to help us understand how to write our comparison here, okay? So it says a number w, so they're telling us the variable we're working with, a number w minus 3.5 is less than or equal to negative 2. Okay, so we always read these once and then we go back and try to translate it. So a number w, so I have my number here. Excuse me for saying variable earlier. We're talking about it as a number, so it's a definitive number w. Minus, well, what does minus mean? Subtraction, right? So minus 3.5 is less than or equal to negative 2. Well, they're telling us right out which symbol we're supposed to use. Less than or equal to a negative 2. Okay? So we already know how to write this. It's just written in the text. W minus 3.5 is less than or equal to negative 2. So all we're going to be doing here is taking the sentence they give us and translate it into what it is mathematically. So the next one says 3 is less than a number n plus 5. Well, let's go back and translate this. 3, the number 3, is less than, well, they're telling us which symbol to use, is less than a number n plus 5. Well, how do you write plus 5? The addition symbol, right? Plus 5. So we get 3 is less than a number n plus 5. Okay, so these guys would be our answers to the first two questions. 3 is less than a number n plus 5. What about C here? 0 is greater than or equal to twice a number x plus 1. Okay, so 0 here is greater than or equal to, so they're telling us outright which one we're going to use, is greater than or equal to twice a number x plus 1. Now this one might be a little bit more difficult than the first two here. When we say twice a number, do they actually tell us what we're dealing with here? Well, all they tell us is that the number is x, right? So we don't know what the number is, we just know it's x. However, what does it mean to twice something? What is twice of something? Well, it's doubled, right? Well, how do you double something? Times 2. So if I twice a number, they're saying 2 times that number. So this would be 2 times x, and then how do you write plus 1? Plus 1. So 0 is greater than or equal to twice some number. When we twice a number, that means times 2, plus 1. Okay? So this would be my answers for the first 3 questions. Now let's look at these guys. And then after we get done with this, tomorrow in class, we're going to work on some of these, okay? Some of these might be a little bit more challenging, but we're going to get some practice on this together. But let's finish this part, and then we'll do the rest in class tomorrow. So it says a number b is fewer than 30.4, okay? So let's go back and reread it. A number b is fewer than. We'll go back to our key words. Which one of these is fewer than? This guy, right? The less than symbol. So if I have fewer than something, then I have less than that, right? So this is less than 30.4. So my answer would be B is fewer than, or we could say less than 30.4. Okay? 2, this one's a little bit more of a challenge. It says -7/10 is at least twice the number k minus 4. -7/10, so we know we have this fraction, is at least. Well, which one of these uses the phrase at least? This guy, right? This guy uses at least. That's the greater than or equal to. Well, that makes sense. If you're at least something, that means you can equal it or be more. So we're going to use the greater than or equal to symbol is at least twice a number. Well, what did we do when we had twice a number up here? That meant 2 times that number, right? So I have twice some number k. So this would be 2 times k, right? So we have twice a number k minus 4. What does it mean to minus something? Subtract 4. So this guy would be my solution to this. Okay? So again, we'll do these other ones in class tomorrow, and then we'll get some guided practice as well.